Hello and welcome to the second video of History with Ben. Today's video we'll look at how Napoleon lost the Battle of Waterloo. First, a bit of background. By 1813, Napoleon was on the retreat after a disastrous invasion of Russia. As the allies of Europe were in France and near Paris, Napoleon, with pressure from his generals and seeing no way of winning, resigned to the allies on the 11th of April, 1814. He was then sent to the remote island of Elba off the Italian coast. Louis XVIII was quickly put back on the throne. At first, Louis XVIII was popular because the French people were simply sick and tired of Napoleon's costly wars and how many people died in them. But soon, he was hated because he tried to restore the system that the French Revolution wanted to destroy. Napoleon had heard a rumor that he was going to be sent to another remote island. This is why he made it back to the French mainland on the 26th of February, 1815, at Gulf Juan near Caen. He had a mere 700 men with him. Louis XVIII sent the 5th Regiment to kill Napoleon. When they met just south of Grenoble, Napoleon said to his troops, "Here I am. Kill your emperor if you wish." To this is an extraordinary moment happened, in which the troops put down their guns and said, "Vive l'Empereur," meaning "Long live the Emperor" in French. Meanwhile, Marshal Ney had said to Louis XVIII that he was going to bring back Napoleon in an iron cage. Marshal Ney now started begging for forgiveness from Napoleon. Amazingly, the same thing happened over and over and over again. King Louis XVIII ran away to Belgium. Napoleon returned to Paris on the 20th of March. While on his way to Paris, all the other countries of Europe promised to defeat Napoleon. Napoleon now had a new campaign. The target of that campaign was Brussels, the capital of Belgium. While the British and the Dutch were in Belgium, they were dispersed all over Flanders and were certainly not ready to fight Napoleon. The Germans were in Wallonia, close to the French border. When one compares the numbers of all three armies, you immediately realize why it was crucial for Napoleon to split Wellington, the general of the British and the Dutch, and Blücher, the general of the Germans. Wellington and Blücher combined would walk over Napoleon in number of men. Napoleon had correctly anticipated that no one would expect him to cross the French border on the 15th, as no one had expected that anyone would be able to, within 100 days, take control of France, reorganize the country, and rearm the Grand Army of France for war. It was a miracle of political skill, organization, and logistics, with only a man like Napoleon would be capable of. Wallonia was where, on the 16th, occurred the first contact, in Ligny, where Napoleon beat the Germans in a bloody battle that lasted into the night. Napoleon won, but he failed to annihilate the fugitive German army. Napoleon was no longer the young general from Italy, and as old men do, he got quite tired. Consequently, he lost the credit of his victory, because the bulk of the beaten army had stopped the fight and escaped in good order. Because in the evening Blücher got wounded and fainted, everyone thought he was dead, as he lay crushed under his horse, and General Gneisenau, second in command, took control of what was left of the German army and marched them to walk on the double back to east to Germany to escape destruction. The next day, Napoleon sent his general Grouchy east to prevent the Germans from returning. Grouchy would fight the German rear guard, but never made contact with the German army. When Blücher woke up the next day, he overruled Gneisenau and gave orders to march north to Wavre, a city in Belgium, also on the double. He moved his army closer to Brussels, a tactical position from where he could join the British and the Dutch in case they decided to do a battle with the French just south of Brussels. The next day, the 17th, was a complete waste of time for the French. The first target of the day was Quatre, a vital crossroad on the east-west north-south on the Brussels to French road. The roads in 1815 were few and far between. They're not like today. And these armies were built around horse-pulled carriages and guns, and could not move over farmland like our tanks do today. Marshal Ney had orders from Napoleon to take Quatre, while Napoleon would deal with the Dutch further east. The British were very weakly positioned at Quatre, a tactical mistake made by Napoleon, but the colonel in charge tricked Ney by hiding a few men in cornfields and making a lot of noise, making it seem like he had a lot more men. Ney, the brave of the brave so-called, got scared and demanded reinforcements before he could move his troops into these cornfields. Meanwhile, Napoleon had completely underestimated the Dutch. Between Ney and Napoleon was a French army, the Third Army, a reserve, in case it was needed on the battle. Both Ney and Napoleon gave instructions urgently calling that this Third Army for them to come, because with this assistance it would have made all the day's difference, both on Napoleon's and Ney's battlefield. The Third Army spent the entire day moving west, east, for etc., to get to each battlefield. A complete waste of energy, and by the time the day was over, they had not fired a single shot. Later, on the 18th, the French ran out of luck. The strength of the French army was in their mobile artillery, the best in the world at the time. They were moving faster than the infantry could, and exercised reforming lines to square, and back to lines, back to square, etc. But because of 24 hours of rain, the terrain was too muddy to move their guns swiftly and play the artillery-cavalry game, which is how Napoleon won most of his battles. Normally, battles start at sunrise and finished before lunch at that time. Because of the mud, Napoleon started much later, which gave Blücher, the general of the Germans who had retreated and was now coming back, time to walk towards Waterloo into the sound of the guns. Grouchy had still not found the main army. Blücher arrived in time to make the difference and to finish the battle when both the Allies and the French were completely exhausted. But now let's talk about the actual Battle of Waterloo and how Napoleon lost it. Let us now compare the troop numbers at Waterloo. The French army has 128,000 men, the Germans have 111, and the British and the Dutch have 93,000. From now on, I will call the Germans the Prussians, as technically Germany was not a country yet, and it was still called Prussia. So whenever you hear the word Prussians, I'm actually talking about Germany. At 11:30 a.m., the battle begins. During the battle, major mistakes were made. Firstly, the French attack on Hougomont was only supposed to be a feint, to find out which intentions Wellington had for the day. Would he send reinforcements to his western line and protect Hougomont? Would he fail to bother on his right-hand line and reserve his main strength for the center? As Wellington hardly reacted, it was soon clear that he made up his mind. He expected to be met in the center, which is a tactic that Napoleon used in almost all of his battles, to add a feint and then attack them in the center. Napoleon used this a lot, and Wellington knew this, as he had studied all of Napoleon's battles before to make sure that he would win this battle. Stupidly, the attack on Hougomont dragged on for the rest of the day, under the command of Jeremy, Napoleon's brother, and as the farm of Hougomont was on a low ground, sort of in a valley, the battle could not be surveyed from Napoleon's vantage point. Jeremy lost thousands of his best infantry for no good reason. 12 o'clock. Napoleon fires his cannons at the Dutch army, but many miss due to the slopes at Napoleon and the mud from all the rain. 1:30. Napoleon sends General Ney to attack the center of the British army, while the Quatre division attack Honsaté, which is on the other side in the other farmhouse at Waterloo. The French overrun the place, even with General Bragg's tough resistance. This leads the Duke of Wellington to send the Kielsman's division as reinforcements. The Kemp brigade is sent to flatten the French and stop them. Two French divisions get through. The heavy cavalry now attacks, and the English heavy cavalry now attacks, and nothing seems to stop them. The battalion defending it is completely destroyed, and 2 flags are stolen. The English cavaliers are not stopped in front of the cannons and are scattered at their weakest. At their weakest, Napoleon sends his own cavalry to counterattack. The entire British cavalry is destroyed, and there are many losses. 4 o'clock. Marshal Ney thinks he can see the British retreating and attacks with his cavalry. Simply because in the afternoon, Wellington orders his army to withdraw a few hundred meters on the top of the dune to spare his infantry useless cavalry from the French cannons. And Ney had once concluded that the British were on the run. He gathers his forces for the largest cavalry attack in history without artillery and without any infantry. Once, without any protection, without any artillery protection, or any remnants of terrain in front of them, once they go over the slope, the British cavalry are faced by a dozen solid squares, each with on 4 sides 3 rows of rifles reloading 2 times per minute, and 6 bayonets per 2 meters. Attacking head-on would make no sense, and the horses would be lifted and killed with 6 bayonets in the belly. The cavalry have no escape, and as they push forward by the momentum of 8,000 horses, they gallop between the squares and keep turning around for half an hour. It emits too much noise for any marshal or general to tell them to get out. The British infantry has trained 100 times on this grid, shooting and reloading in perfect order, aiming at the level of the horses. Don't mind the rider. Kill the horse, because if the man on the horse is on the ground, his heavy boots and his cap and all his steel will make it very hard to move on the battlefield. He is a sitting duck, a dead man. At the same time, the Prussians and Blücher finally arrive and attack Napoleon's right flank. Fierce hand-to-hand combat occurs, but the French ultimately cannot stop the Prussians. 6 o'clock. The French attack Honsaté, and the Prince of Orange, or the Prince of Holland, sends 2 divisions there. But the French capture it, and the Prince of Orange is hurt in the chest. From Honsaté, the French bring their cannons there, and now these cannons can hit the Allied squares. Many British men are killed, and it looks like Wellington will have to retreat. 7 o'clock. The Prussians do an all-out attack and destroy Napoleon's right flank. Napoleon no longer has new men to send to attack Wellington. 7:30. The timing to send Napoleon decides to send the Imperial Guard. It was wrong, and they had never walked in, and they walked straight into the British snipers, where they all stalled. You see, the Imperial Guard was a bit of a myth, as they had never been beaten on the battlefield, and were normally a huge confidence booster. The guards around shouted in French, La garde recule, meaning the guard retreats. Now morale is at an all-time low, as the never-defeated Imperial Guard are retreating. The battle is lost. Wellington, sensing victory, sends an all-out attack, while Blücher does the same. The British and the Germans, the Prussians, completely defeat the French, who retreat, apart from one old guard, who form one last square. In vain. After refusing to surrender, they are all shot. The battle ends. Napoleon's losses were 24,000 to 26,000 killed or wounded, including 6,000 to 7,000 captured. Wellington around 15,000 dead or wounded. Napoleon ran away to France. The Allies successfully attacked his army. On the 8th of July, the 18th was put back on the throne, and on the 15th, Napoleon surrendered. He would spend the rest of his life on the island of St. Helena, where he would die 6 years later at the age of 51. I hope you enjoyed the video, and sorry for the late upload. If you'd like to decide my next video, please put it in the discussion tab where there will be a poll, or just write it down here in the comments, as I will make another video this summer. Thank you.